Okay, we've all been there, right? That moment in the middle school hallway where all you want to do is just be invisible. Well, today we're jumping into a story that just nails that feeling. It's all about the pressure to fit in, the fear of standing out, and this one choice that totally changes everything. Let's get into it. So, let me ask you, what is the number one unwritten rule of middle school? Seriously, take a second to think about it. Is it what you wear, who you eat lunch with? Well, for the main character in our story, Lila, the answer was super simple, and it pretty much drove everything she did. And boom, there it is, fitting in. This one thing is the engine for this entire story. Our narrator, Lila, she didn't want to be popular or famous. She just wanted to be invisible. And, that's a feeling a lot of us can probably relate to. All right, so let's really break down this pressure to fit in. We're going to look at the unwritten rules Lila was living by because they totally set the stage for everything that's about to happen. Now, this is the key to the whole social code. It wasn't about trying to be the most popular kid. No, it was about avoiding being different. If you stood out for any reason, good or bad, it was like putting a giant target on your back. The real goal was to just blend in. And this is where a boy named Derek comes into the picture. What's interesting is the story never actually tells us why he stood out. And that's kind of the point, right? It didn't matter. He was just different. So to protect her own social status, Leela did what everyone else did. She stayed far, far away. But here's where it gets complicated. Lila's whole plan to avoid Derek, it completely backfires. Because turns out, he had other plans. And suddenly, the one thing she was trying to escape, attention, was coming right for her. She had a secret admirer she definitely did not want. So Derek starts leaving Lila these little gifts. And we're not talking about anything fancy. We're talking about like prizes from a cereal box or a little toy from a gum machine. He'd leave them in her locker or tuck them into her jacket pocket. They were small, they were constant, and for Lila, they were a huge problem. And you really have to see this from Leela's point of view. For her, these gifts weren't sweet or romantic. They were a social emergency. Every little prize was a direct threat to her main mission, fitting in. She wasn't flattered, she was just panicking. And of course, this is what happens next. Her friends immediately start teasing her with that classic sing-songy chant. This is basically the soundtrack to her worst nightmare. She's being singled out, and it's all because of Derek. This just perfectly sums up her problem, doesn't it? All that hard work she put into being invisible, into fading into the woodwork, was just gone. Now she was the one thing she never, ever wanted to be, the center of attention. So all of this tension is building up, and it's all about to explode in the most public place imaginable at a school, the lunchroom. This is the big showdown. I mean, can you just picture it? A loud, crowded cafeteria. Everyone you know is there, watching, and Derek walks right up to Lila's table with a dozen red roses. This isn't a tiny prize in her locker. This is a massive, public, super dramatic gesture. And the note he wrote is actually kind of heartbreaking. He flat out says, "I know I'm not the coolest kid." He's totally aware of where he stands in the social food chain, but he's putting himself out there anyway, hoping for something good to happen. But Leela has just hit her breaking point. She is so angry and embarrassed that she just lashes out. Right there in front of everybody, she rejects him and the roses in the harshest way you can imagine. She just wants it to be over. But what happens in the very next second changes absolutely everything. In just a single moment, Leela's entire way of thinking just flips. She sees his reaction, and it's not anger, it's just pure hurt. That one detail, his bottom lip quivering, is what changes it all. In that instant, he stops being the annoying kid who makes her stand out, and he becomes a real person who she is just deeply, deeply hurt. And Leela knows the stakes here. If Derek starts crying in the middle of the lunchroom, he's going to get labeled a crybaby. And in middle school, that's not just a bad day. That's like a social life sentence. It's a label that could stick to him forever. And this is it. This is where she makes her choice. Something inside her just shifts. And suddenly, her own embarrassment doesn't seem as important as protecting him from something way worse. She decides she has to do something, not for herself, but for him. So now, let's look at what happens because of that one decision. because taking those roses completely changes how she feels, not just for the rest of the day, but maybe for a long time after. Just look at this contrast. Before she made the choice, she felt angry and embarrassed. Being the center of attention felt like a nightmare. But after she decides to protect Derek, those feelings turn into pride and strength. I mean, the attention is still on her, but now she feels untouchable. This final image just says it all. Those roses, which were the symbol of her embarrassment just a minute ago, are now a symbol of her strength. She's not hiding anymore. She's walking tall, totally owning the moment. What's really fascinating is that they never talked about it again. They didn't become friends or anything, but they didn't have to. A kind of silent understanding had been reached. He stopped leaving the gifts, and they would just nod at each other in the hall. It was this quiet, mutual respect. Looking back, Lila herself isn't even sure what to call that moment, but she knows it was the first time she ever put someone else's feelings ahead of her own need to fit in. Maybe it was growth, maybe maturity, she's not sure. And that brings us all the way back to that unwritten rule. Lila broke it to protect someone else, and in the process, she found something way better than fitting in. She found her own strength. And it leaves us with a really good question to think about. We all want to fit in, but when is it actually worth it to stand out instead?